So the American people are about to get something that they really want. Now, I want to break down what this is and why President Biden approves of this. So that's the good news. The bad news that we are going to touch on today as well is that right now Congress is debating a few different bills, two of which they don't know if they can pass in time. I'm going to address what this means moving forward, how this is going to impact you, and why this somewhat delay could mean good news for you in the future. So I'm going to address that coming up. All I ask is one thing, takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So it is no surprise that Congress has been somewhat struggling. They can't pass bills. They've been struggling to reach any type of bipartisan agreement on any bill. So all they do is pass back and forth these partisan bills that they know the other party is never going to agree to. Well, that's going to change. But first, the reason why we are seeing a bill that does have bipartisan support and some are saying could pass within the next 2 weeks is because we have all these delays. For instance, right now with the funding deal still out of reach for our government funding bill, well, right now some are saying to prepare for a shutdown. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says, no, don't prepare for a shutdown because Senator Schumer is going to move forward with a temporary funding bill to avoid a shutdown as spending talks continue. That's the good news there. But here's what you need to understand. That's just one of the bills. The next bill is the border bill. But according to one House Republican, he admits that he's going to kill the border deal if it helps President Biden. Guess what? Democrats are saying the exact same thing. Democrats are saying that if this bill helps Republicans, they are potentially going to kill that bill as well. So where do we go from here? Well, here's the good news. We are about to see something big happen for the American people. It's going to really help the lower income and middle income households. Here's what's going on. Right now, reports indicate that Democrats are trying to do all that they can to bring back the child tax credits. Republicans, on the other hand, are okay with this. They agree to this, but they say if we are going to give you the child tax credits, then we want stuff for businesses, business deductions, things for research and development. Well, here's where we're at. Congress is getting close to a $70 billion tax deal that includes breaks for children and businesses. It says Democrats want to resurrect an expanded child tax credit, which cut child poverty, while Republicans are seeking tax breaks for businesses, including research and development and small business expensing. Now, what does this mean? What does all this mean? Well, I know a lot of people are going to say, don't waste our time. Congress has been talking about this for the past 2 years. This is never going to happen. Well, that's where you're wrong. According to many reports, Congress is getting close to passing this bill because it falls on a very important date, but there's a deadline now. In previous talks and discussions, there was never a deadline. Now there is a deadline, and this deadline has to do with two different things. First, it has to do with when the IRS is going to start accepting tax returns, which is January 29th. That is going to be for the 2023 tax filing season. That's big. And the reason why that's big is because there's something else that's happening. This year, we have a presidential election. So being that we have a presidential election, Congress wants to ensure that we pass something before that election. Well, Republicans could easily be able to fix and manipulate things and try to make it work in their favor. But Democrats, on the other hand, know that if they don't get this included, if they don't get this child tax credit included, then this is going to really hurt their upcoming chances of winning the presidency again and keeping control over the Senate and possibly gaining their control back over the House of Representatives. So because of that, they are saying that no, we need to get this done. Now, here's where things are interesting. What we know is that this, for businesses, it's a pandemic era tax cut. It's the employee retention credit, okay? The employee retention tax credit. This is something that we've seen a lot of fraud over the past few years. So because of that, Congress is deciding, let's get rid of that and let's reallocate that money. Let's repurpose that funding somewhere else. This is where it's going, right? But Republicans are saying, well, if we are going to get rid of the employee retention tax credit, then we need to have something else for businesses. And this is where, right now for business expensing, let's say you buy a car. In previous years, if you bought a car, you can get 100% of the car's value, okay, of what you spent on that car. You can deduct that in year one. Well, before the pandemic, again, this is a pandemic era benefit. Before the pandemic, you could deduct the expenses, but over 5 years. So that's something that is very big, and this is something that businesses want, because now they can invest into equipment and things like that. Then they can get the money back, and they can turn it into other things. They can do more research, more development, more building their business, right, and growing. So that's something that is currently on the table. Here's the other thing that's very different, and this is where many people that I've watched on YouTube, on social media, read different articles, they're completely screwing this up, and they're going to make people very upset. So what we know is that this child tax credit is simply the expanded child tax credit. That's what Democrats are fighting for. They are not fighting for monthly child tax credit payments. That's not what they're asking for. They're not asking for $3,600. May that be the number? Possibly. But at this time, what Democrats are asking for is expanding the child tax credits. And that means two different things. First off, as of right now, every child under the age of 17 gets $2,000 per year. That's the child tax credit. Now, what is going to be different, what Republicans want, is for that child tax credit, if it's $2,000 or let's say $3,000, they want to make sure that that payment, that tax credit, is not fully refundable. If it's a fully refundable tax credit, that means that even if somebody doesn't work throughout the year and they have no income to go against it, then they can still get the full child tax credit, the full $2,000 or $3,000, whatever it may be. Okay, we don't know. But that's the first thing. Democrats want it fully refundable. Republicans say no, absolutely not. So that's where they are currently having issues. The second thing is right now, Democrats say that business tax deduction is worth more than what the child tax credit is worth. So Democrats want something else in exchange. We don't know what they're going to toss in there, but they are asking for something else. The last thing, again, these are not going to be monthly tax credit payments. These aren't going to be monthly payments like we saw back in 2021. These are going to be every single year. You have to file your federal tax return or else you do not receive this funding. Okay? So that's where things are at this time. Again, this is good news because this means that Democrats and Republicans are starting to work together. The problem that we faced over the previous years is that when we have a divided Congress, we really have to come together. The problem is when we are trying to fight over government funding and we're fighting over the southern border security. Those are two high priority bills. The problem is they're so big that it's very hard to pass. So instead of starting up here, we're coming all the way down to the bottom and we're finding a bill, finding something that we have common ground on, and then we will pass that. We'll work on that bill, then we'll take the next step, work on the next bill, and we'll work our way up to pass something that is truly meaningful to the American people. But as of right now, what we hear is that President Biden approves of this simply because he has to have something to show the constituents, to show his voters that he is doing everything he can for them. And that's exactly what Republicans are trying to do at this time as well. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you is that this new bill has a very high likelihood of passing before January 29th, 2024. So we'll see what happens moving forward. All I can tell you is I will be here every step of the way. I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. All I ask is one thing. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.